How's your man and them? We are back. It is Thursday. It is weekend eve. Hope everybody has some good plans for the weekend. I might watch some boxing. We'll talk about some boxing. We'll talk about some fights that are lined up this weekend. We'll also talk about some breaking news that's just hilarious to me. Like just absolutely hilarious. Absolutely. OJ22, appreciate you coming through. Make sure you hit that like button as you come through, and make sure you are hitting introducing yourself as you come through as well. And voices been coaching a lot of basketball and coaching kids basketball and yelling at kids. So throat the voice isn't what it normally is. So just that's just a heads up. Uh my guy Shakur Stevens is still out there whining, and Shakur's fans are leave Shakur alone. Leave Shakur alone. Oh my God, leave Shakur alone. He's just trying to win fights. He's just trying to win fights. And you guys just don't understand. You don't understand. You don't understand the sweet science. You don't understand the art of hitting and not getting hitting. You don't understand. The guy doesn't lose. He doesn't get hit. You don't understand the brilliance of Shakur. Can y'all please stop with the whining? Oh my God, the whining. The constant whining. What time is the Nakatani fight? I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm not sure. I'm going to be looking that up because Junto Nakatani is must see TV. Remy, appreciate the super chat. $2 super chat. Salute to you. If I could play the hardworking man thing without, for whatever reason, they don't bother D-Style, but they bother me with the hardworking man thing and they give me strikes. So I'm a hardworking man. Shout out to Remy out there. Appreciate you with that $2 super chat. Chicano in the building. Salute to you. Yep, everybody out there. Yeah, old crybaby head asses. Old crybaby head ass dudes. Look at these old crybaby head ass dudes. Leave Shakur alone. Oh my God, leave Shakur alone. He's just trying to get his 3 million per fight. Why are you hating on him? Why are you hating on him? He's just trying to get his money. He's just trying to get his bag. That's all he's trying to do. And you guys just keep hating on him because you're racist or whatever, and you don't appreciate the art of defensive fighting. You don't understand. You don't appreciate the art of the sweet science. You can't possibly comprehend what he's out there. Don't cry, baby head ass dudes. Leave Shakur alone. These dudes are constantly whining. Can you please stop with the whining? Please stop with. Can you young American fighters please stop with the whining? Please just be normal citizens outside the ring. Can you not hit pregnant women driving your booster seat and run away? Can you not get arrested with a motorcycle helmet on when there's no motorcycles around? Can you please, look, dude, if you're going to go 2 fights and be boring, can you not complain about people calling you boring after the fight? Can we please be normal? Normal. And look, Mace, I got to give him credit. He said this. And older dudes, can you please stop acting like gangsters? Like it's not cool. It's not cool. It's just not cool. Jay Prince is out there. This is a no-fly zone, and you need to. It's not cool. If you're over 30 and you still have ops, you're doing something wrong. Nobody finds that cool. You need to grow up. Grow up. Steven Jackson's out there hanging out with Bloods in the hood. Can you please stop? It's not cool. If you're over 30 and you still have ops, you need to grow up. Grow up. Grow up. Why are you still trying to be in gangs? Why are you still trying to be around gang members? It's not cool. Grow up. These dudes, man, all these dudes are corny. Corny dudes. Shout out to Nando Yamas. $4.99 super chat. So, I mean, that's the message. That's the message to the older guys. Stop being corny. Grow up. Grow up. Get a job. Be a productive citizen. So let's start off with this PBC. PBC. I actually love the PBC because they provide such great entertainment as far as stuff to talk about outside the ring. Just comedic. It just have a comedic value behind them. They don't produce good fights. They don't keep their fighters active. Um, no quality control, all that stuff, right? But what they do is they provide content creators like myself just great comedic value because these dudes, man, like these dudes. So I'm sitting at home, minding my own business, scrolling last week, da da da, da da da, just scrolling. And what do I see? I see Caleb Plant's back August 17th. I was like, okay. White chocolate's back. I like Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant's the new king of the tunnel. I like that. He's out there. He's slapping dudes in the tunnel. He's throwing drinks on Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia without the motorcycle helmet on is at the fight, and Caleb Plant just throws a drink at him, and then like 20 dudes confront him, and Caleb Plant's toe to toe with him. I like this dude. I like him. He's protecting his wife, his family. Um, he's pulling up on dudes who used to be the kings of the tunnel, the Charlo brothers, right? And he's slapping them multiple times, and they don't do anything. It's just hilarious. I love him. So I like the dude. And then that's the sad part about this, and that's what I've talked about for years, fellas. The sad part about this, I like so many dudes who have been over there on the PBC roster. I like these dudes, and I want to cheer for them. And then I see the announcements, and I'm like, good Lord. Good Lord. And look, he had something going. Canelo, he fights Canelo. He loses, right? He's telling Canelo sorry after the fight. That's not good, but he fought the fight. He fought a valiant effort. And he takes a long time off in between. That's not good, but he comes back, fights Darrell. Darrell says he'll never lose to a white boy. Guess what? He loses to a white boy, and he does in terrible fashion. And Caleb Plant does the infamous shovel to him. And that was beautiful. And I'm like, oh, all right, we're back. We're back. We're back. White chocolate's back. And then he fights Benavidez. Valiant effort. Goes a distance, right? Because I was told going into that fight that there's just no way Benavidez will knock his head off, because Benavidez knocks everybody's head off. And Benavidez, he's huge fighter. And he throws like 27 punch combinations to where you just can't react to that. And there's just no way Caleb Plant's not going to go past 3 rounds. And what happens? Caleb Plant goes 12 rounds. And Caleb Plant has success first half of the fight. So we say that's good, right? But what happens is he disappears for a year and a half. Disappears. It's like, okay, all right. So when he comes back, I expect a big fight, because what are we hearing? And I just expected this to be, because I've been hearing for a couple months, Caleb Plant's going to come back. He's going to come back against Charlo. Something happened in the tunnel, but we're going to settle it in the ring now. He's going to fight Mal Charlo. We're going to settle it in the ring. And then I hear Boo Boo Andrade, possibly Boo Boo Andrade, right? Because, Boo Boo Andrade. So that's what I'm expecting. But what happens? What happens? He say, y'all think June? What happens, though? The announcement comes. And there's no official announcement yet, but this is what it's supposed to be, right? Caleb Plant is about to fight Trevor McCumbee, the great undefeated American Trevor McCumbee. I didn't think there were any other undefeated white American fighters in the sport, but apparently there is. His name is Trevor McCumbee. I didn't know he existed. I didn't know Trevor McCumbee existed, but he does. And I had to look him up because I have no idea who he was. He's coming off he had a 5-year layoff between 2018 to 2023. His last 3 fights, his opponents had a combined 38 losses and 5 draws. I think this is my favorite part of this is the fight's going down. This card allegedly is going down at the Caribe Royale in Orlando, Florida. I love it. And this is typical PBC fashion right here, fellas. They're back. They're back because we've been wondering, like, okay, they're doing just one fight quarterly, roughly, right? Just roughly. And they're all on pay-per-view. So we've been wondering, like, are they going to do a non-pay-per-view event? And we've been hearing it's going to be middle of August, right? But they do a pay-per-view in March. They do a pay-per-view in May. They do a pay-per-view in June. So we've got 3 so far, and they're all pay-per-views, right? But at least there was a little bit of quality control in the last two. Tim Tszyu versus Fedora. It's like, what the hell is that? That's not a pay-per-view card. They put it on pay-per-view. But then we move on. It's like Canelo versus Munguia. That's good. That's good. That's fine. I'll pay for that. Take Benavidez on the same card. I don't like the opponents, but you put them on the same card. Okay, there's a little bit of quality control. A little bit. And then they hit us with, I'm telling you, we're going to give you a non-pay-per-view. It's going to be a non-pay-per-view. It's like, okay, all right. Let's see if we got something that's Plant versus McCumbee. But you get it for free, right? You get it for free. Plant versus McCumbee and Stephen Fulton Jr. versus Ronnie Rios. Caleb Plant is from where? He's from Nashville, Tennessee. Trucker Hat, Nashville, Tennessee. And where is Stephen Fulton Jr. from? Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So naturally, in PBC fashion, where are we putting the fight? Orlando, Florida at the Caribe Royale. I love it. And they all do it, right? I remember we were talking about when they put Cambosos versus Maxie Hughes in the great state of Oklahoma, middle of Oklahoma. And I say, wait a second. This guy's from Australia. This guy's from the UK. You got him fighting in Oklahoma? It's like, yeah, naturally. We got to do it because, the site fee and taxes or whatever. I was like, well, what about Australia? What about UK? We can't do that because of this. We can't do that because of that. So we have to assume that these guys are so intelligent that they're doing the right thing by putting a UK fighter against an Australian fighter in Oklahoma. And that's what the power brokers are telling me when they answer these questions on Twitter, that this makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. But of course it doesn't. And Caleb Plant fighting Trevor McCumbee, already bad enough. Why? Because, fellas, I'm going to show you a clip in a minute of, we're going to go over to activity and how activity is actually used against active fighters. It's used against them. And look no further than Canelo and Inoue as examples of that. It's used against them. It's used against them. And not enough inactive fighters are being punished for being inactive. And I'll give you examples of that. But this is the thing. What happens with Caleb Plant is he doesn't fight in, what is it now, 16 months, 17 months. And he's coming off of a loss. So what happens is he announces a fight with Trevor McCumbee, and I say, this is me reacting. Naturally, as a boxing fan, I say to myself, wait a second. This guy's coming off a loss, and he's been inactive, and you come back with Trevor McCumbee? Trevor McCumbee, if you're fighting once per year and a half, you need to make it count. Every fight has to be a big fight. Every fight has to be a meaningful fight. Every fight has to be a top 5 contender fight. All of them. They have to be meaningful if you're barely showing up. But what does the other side say? What does the typical American boxing fan say when Caleb Plant versus Trevor McCumbee is announced? What do they say? They say the complete opposite. They say, well, he's coming off the loss. He deserves a soft touch. Yeah, but that was 17 months ago. He had time to recover from whatever the Benavidez fight was. Yeah, but 17 months, he needs a tune-up because he's going to have ring rust. So he needs a tune-up coming off. What are you talking about? What is this? If you're barely fighting, every fight has to be a big fight. Every fight, if you're fighting once and a half, 12 to 18 months, every fight has to be meaningful. You have to make it count. But these other dudes will go the complete opposite direction. And they'll say, year and a half layoff. He's got to come up against a soft touch. He's got to work out the ring rust. He's coming off of a loss. The inactive fighters, the fighters who aren't doing what they're supposed to do, we're treating them like babies. We're treating them with lower standards. And we're not being honest about why we're doing that, number one. But why in the hell, after you take 17 months off after a loss, do you deserve a tune-up? What is that? How do you expect to get any kind of momentum, leverage, How do you expect to stay in top 10 rankings? But a lot of these guys do. Stephen Fulton Jr. coming off of a beatdown is going to be 13 months in between fights. 13 months. He's going to fight Ronnie Rios. Ronnie Rios has fought 3 fights since COVID hit. 3. But Stephen Fulton Jr. has fought 4 times since COVID hit. And this is the thing. This is a typical PBC card. It encapsulates it perfectly. This is a microcosm of PBC right here. It's why it is where it is. It's why it's in the position that it's in. It's why it's this nickel and dime GoFundMe business model that for some reason a lot of American fans support. And we call it out, and when we call it out, we're called racist, whatever, right? But it needs to be called out because this is terrible. And this perfectly encapsulates it, this card right here. Do you not learn from anything? This is perfect, fellas. All the fighters are inactive. Caleb Plant, it'll be his first fight in 17 months. Trevor McCumbee went on a 5-year layoff. And his last 3 opponents have a combined 38 losses and 5 draws. Fulton Jr. has fought 4 times since COVID hit, and that was 4 years ago, over 4 years ago. So the dude is a once-per-year fighter. And Ronnie Rios is also a part-time, almost inactive fighter. It's perfect. They're all inactive. It's perfect. That's PBC. They're all inactive. They're all getting, the A sides are getting soft touches. It's perfect. That's PBC. And the other thing that's perfect about it as far as PBC goes is, of course, it's where it doesn't belong. It's where it doesn't belong. I'm watching Boots in his fight Saturday night, and I'm beside myself watching him go to the ring. 14,000 plus. They're loud. They're wild. The dude's looking up. He's like, I can't believe this. Look at all the people that showed up for me. And I'm saying to myself, I'm beside myself. I'm saying to myself, how in the world did this guy go 6 years without fighting there? How did he go 6 years without fighting in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania? How in the world were they burying this guy on undercards of fighters that he's better than, fighting in LA, fighting in the Indian casinos, and God knows where? For years. For years they're doing this. And I'm being told that these dudes are geniuses. They're genius. You can't possibly understand the intelligence of the Steven Espinosas and the Samson Lukawicz of the world. You can't understand it. These dudes are far more intelligent, and they're 27 steps ahead of you. They're playing 8D chess. They're multiple steps ahead. I'm looking at them like these dudes are dumb. They're dumb. You can't say that. You're just a boxing fan. You can't say that. You don't understand the business of the sport. They look dumb to me. This dude just fought in front of 14,000. Why hasn't he been doing that? You're about to put Caleb Plant versus Trevor McCumbee in Orlando, Florida at the Caribe Royale. Because of course you are. These are the geniuses, fellas. Like, I'm nobody. I'm just a dude on the internet. These are the geniuses. They're the geniuses. I mean, I don't know. Like, of course you put Caleb Plant versus Trevor McCumbee and Stephen Fulton Jr. versus Ronnie Rios at the Caribe Royale in Orlando, Florida. Of course you do. Nashville? No. No. Nashville? No. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania? No. We don't do that. No. Orlando, Florida. Caribe Royale. Because why not? And because these dudes, there's no long-term vision ever, fellas. None over there. That's why they can't build stars. And they're lying to you about some of these dudes being stars. Tank Davis is not a superstar. I'm just telling you. He's out there allegedly asking for 40 million. I don't know if he's doing that or not. That's what people are out there saying. He's out there asking for 40 million. Good luck getting your 40 million. They can't produce stars over there, fellas. Their model does not allow for it. And I've tried to explain this to you for years. It can't. That model cannot build stars. It can't. You'll have dumb, low IQ American boxing fans out there telling you that they're building stars and they can't. They're the Yankee model. They have to watch other people, other franchises build fighters up to a certain point. These fighters have to build themselves into stars, and then PBC before had a bigger budget, and they would reach into that bank and overpay for these fighters in order to get them over to the PBC, right? That's what would happen. But their model can't can't do it because there's no long-term vision. They're not fighting these fighters where it makes sense. They're not putting these fighters in tough fights, and you still have to, unless you're one of these Instagram sensations like Ryan Garcia or whatever, you still have to go through the fire in order to become a star. You have to do it. That's part of the process, and they don't allow their fighters to go through the fire. They can't. They're not going to do it. They can't do it. They're not going to put their fighters up in there against threats. And the other part of it with the PBC is, I mean, we've talked for years about there's no long-term vision. There's no strategic vision with these fighters. None. None. It's all just short-term thinking. It's all just, Dana White talks about this all the time, treating every fight like it's a going out of business sale. And the sad part about this is we may not see Caleb Plant for another 12 to 18 months after this fight. That's the trend. So there's no reason to get emotionally invested in these fighters if we don't expect to see them for 12 to 18 months. And then on top of that, when they do poke their heads out, who are they fighting? Trevor McCumbee? And the sad part about all of this, fellas, is I want to like Caleb Plant. There's nothing not to like about a dude. You talk about his wife, he throws a drink at you, he's willing to confront 20 people to get to you. There's nothing not to like about a dude. If a dude tells him something in the tunnel who is known as the king of the tunnel, he slaps him open-handed twice, and the dude does nothing back to him. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna like that dude. I'm gonna like that dude. A dude tells him I'll never lose to a white boy. He knocks the dude out and then shovels him. I like that dude. That's cool. That's cool stuff. But it's this. Like, it's this. Who's running your career? What is this? Why am I going to get emotionally invested in you? If you're fighting 12 to 18 months and it's against Trevor McCumbee. Come on. Come on, man. This should have been Charlo. This should have been Boo Boo Andrade. And we've been letting these dudes off the hook. One thing I can say is finally, Mel Charlo doesn't have a belt at 154, I don't believe. Like, he hasn't fought at 154 in over 2 years. Finally, Ring Magazine takes the belt off of him after 26 months of not fighting at 154. Finally, thank you. Thank you. So we're getting a little bit of movement. Let me show y'all this clip. This is friend of the show, Steve Kim. Let's just go straight into the clip.
Inoue will be taking on TJ Doheny in late September, and then he could be taking on Sam Goodman by the end of the year. That means 4 fights for a guy who might be the best fighter in the world. This is a lesson.
Love that.
To all fighters who want to be somebody, you have to be active. Now, I will say this. Before he leaves 122, I would like to see him fight MJ Akhmadaliev.
Yes.
I mean, I think that's still his toughest matchup, and he is number 1, I believe, in the WBA.
All great points. All great points. As far as Akhmadaliev, number 1, correct. Correct. That fight needs to be fought at 122. It needs to be fought. We could talk about Akhmadaliev not acting correctly. Akhmadaliev, his career being run by middle midgets as well. But that fight still needs to be had at 122, and I think it will be. I will be. If what I'm hearing correctly about Inoue, that he'll be at 122 for another 2 years, and good for him. Good for him. There's no reason to speed the process and go up to 126. If you want to stick around at 122, that's fine. But Akhmadaliyev's going to be one of those fights. There's no doubt in my mind that fight's going to be fought, but it should be fought. Dahani is going to be September. Sam Goodman's going to be in the mix, likely for December. And I think Akhmadaliev is a fight for 2025. And we'll see what happens with Junto. And more Junto talk in a minute. So this is the thing. Activity. And we talked about inactivity. The bad part about it, right, is Caleb Plant goes 16, 17 months without fighting. He's going to come back up against Trevor McCumbee and Caribe Royale in Orlando, Florida. Of course. American boxing fans are doing this thing where, long layoff. He needs to shake off the ring rust. Okay, that's fine. But is he coming back 3 months after? No, he's not. He's like going to take another 12 to 18 months. So after taking another 12 to 18 months off, does he need another tune-up? Does he need another stay busy, shake off the ring rust fight? Or, I mean, when does this cycle break? When does it break? So they do that thing. Like, they reward the inactive fighters and think that they deserve the soft touches. They reward the fighters coming off the L's a long time ago. Yeah, he's coming off a loss. He deserves a soft touch. I understand, man. Like, I don't throw fighters away after L's. I just don't. If Caleb Plant was fighting the fight, I'd be emotionally invested in him. But if you're coming back against McCumbee 17 months later, go to hell. Like, I don't, and it's nothing against him personally. It's just the people running his career. Because I'm sure if you ask Caleb Plant to fight anybody, the dude is willing to slap up the king of the tunnel in the tunnel. He's willing to throw a drink at Motorcycle Helmet Boy, knowing that he's got 20 big bodyguards in front of him. That dude's not afraid to fight people. It's the people running his career. But the thing is, it's the active fighters who are being punished by, I feel, a lot of American boxing fans and journalists, because we're holding these fighters to a higher standard just because they're doing things quicker. I talked about this, man. Like, I pointed this out multiple times. Errol Spence, when Canelo lost to Dimitri Bivol, and I'm looking at the pound for pound rankings, and I see him drop below Errol Spence. And I'm like, wait a second. Wait a second. How is this dude who fought twice in the same span as Canelo Alvarez fought 6 times? This dude is outpacing the dude 3-1. How is he ranked above Canelo now? Just because Canelo moves up a weight class and loses a fight. What is this? What is this? And I'm seeing it in major publications. What in the world are you doing? What are you doing? Maybe Canelo should fight once every 12 to 18 months. And maybe he'll deserve a tune-up if he does it. Maybe he should fight. Maybe he should. Maybe he should match their activity. And maybe he wouldn't be as held to higher standards than these other fighters. But how does this happen? How does this happen? You clean out a division, you become undisputed in division in 11 months, right? 4 fights in 11 months, you become undisputed. It's like, that's great. But now they're expecting you to just continue to steamroll. And it's the same thing with Inoue now. Is Inoue cleans out 118 and then he cleans out 122, consolidates all the belts in 2 fights within a year at 122. So now dudes expect him to just jump up to 126. Dudes expect him to go to 130 to fight Tank and meet him at a catch weight. Because he's doing things so quickly and fluidly down there. Pause. So your accomplishments, your achievements, and look, man, if we're being honest about this, I'm fine. If we're being honest about this and everybody says, yeah, man, we're holding them to a higher standard because naturally they're just better fighters. They're greater fighters. They're achieving more. Then I'm fine with that. Then, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. We should hold them to a higher standard. We expect more of them because we think they're greater fighters than all these other guys, than their peers. That's fine. But what do these dudes do instead? Canelo's average. In a way, he's fighting midgets down there. He's fighting horse jockeys. It's TJ Doheny, Sam Goodman. Come on. He's ducking MJ Akhmadaliev. And the dude cleaned out 122 already. For the love of God, man, like if you pull up his resume, the dude fought, he moves up to 122 after becoming undisputed at 118, fights the number 1 guy, fights the number 2 guy, fights the number 4 guy. And now he's fighting another top 10. And he'll likely fight another top 10. And then he'll likely fight Akhmadaliev, who, whatever you have him at, 2, 3, whatever. And he's doing this in a short amount of time. And as Steve says there, he's going to fight 4 fights within 13 months, something like that. He's going to fight 3 times in this calendar year. And that's going to be used against him. It will. They're going to say stuff like, what do you have at 122 down there to stick around for? You need to move up to 126, 130. You need to do greater things. And that's going to be used against him. And once again, that's fine if we're being honest about it. But what these dudes are going to do instead is they're going to use that activity. They're going to use him accomplishing things so fast against him. They're going to say things like, he's not fighting anybody. He's taking it easy down there. Doheny is beneath him, stuff like that. All because if he was taking his time doing this once every 12 months, the expectations wouldn't be as high. We're at a point where the guys who are active and achieving things quicker, things are now being used against them. The expectations of these fighters are now higher. And if we're being honest about that, that's fine, but they're not being honest about that. They're calling these guys mid, they're calling them average, while at the same time expecting more of them. And a fighter like Errol Spence, he's still in top 10 pound for pound rankings out there, fellas. And this is a terrible precedent to set. I'm just throwing this out there. It's another terrible precedent to set. It was a terrible precedent to set to have Errol Spence ranked ahead of Canelo Alvarez on pound. I understand it's just a subjective list, but the list, your pound for pound list, it really gives you an identity as a fan, as a publication, as to what you value, right? And I understand it can get complex. I understand right now, I really only have 8 guys that I would put on a pound for pound list. 9, 10 is hard. So, becomes a thing, right? But if you have a guy who has fought 2 times in the same span, another guy has fought 6, and the guy in that span goes 5-1 in that span, he loses a fight stepping up a weight class against another top 10 pound for pound opponent. And he's ranked beneath the guy who's chronically inactive and 2-0 in that span. I have to question, like, what are you looking at? He's outpacing the guy 3-1 as far as activity. And he looks just as good, if not better. I would argue a lot better. And he's beneath. And now I have to question the precedent you're setting when you have a guy on your pound for pound list who hasn't won a fight in 27 months. It's 27 months, fellas. 27 months. And if he comes back, he deserves a tune-up. Why does he deserve a tune-up? Because, car wreck, multiple car wrecks. Only won one fight in 27 months. So, he hasn't won a fight in 27 months. So we need, that he deserves a soft touch. And he deserves a soft touch because look at what Bud did to him last year. Bud just mutilated him. Bud mutilated him, right? And he's moving up a weight class. So, he needs a soft touch. And that's the difference. Is in the same breath, they'll say Spence deserves to be in the conversation with these guys. But while they're doing that, they don't expect the same things of Spence they expect of Canelo, in a way, Usyk, whoever, Bud, whatever. They don't expect it. Usyk and Bud have been inactive. They need to fight more. Once every 12 months. Usyk has had things going against him, the war, Tyson Fury messing around, right? So you give him sort of a pass there. Um, Bud, when he pokes his head out, at least he's fighting the fights, right? Bud has great accomplishments, and I'll say this though, while we're talking about Bud, this is what the Bud super fans need to be realistic about. And I'm burning all kind of bridges today. I am, and I apologize for that. It's nothing personal. It's just stuff that I spot as a boxing fan. And I'm just a boxing fan with a YouTube channel. That's all this is. So I'm just talking. None of this is personal. I like a lot of these dudes. Like they're all awesome people. But with the Bud super fans, I've been a Bud fan over a decade, and I run the risk of being called a Bud hater now. But you need to recognize that dude's not even close to being a star. He's not. They're trying hard, man. Like they're trying hard to sell tickets out there. They're putting Mexican fighters underneath them, trying to bring out the Mexican base, put this fight in LA. They're trying to get Eminem out there like this is 2004. It's 2024. Like nobody's gonna buy $200-$300 tickets because Eminem is gonna perform a song. It's just not like nobody's moved by Eminem anymore. It's just not a thing. This isn't 2004. So Bud's not a star. And I hate to say that. I wish he was. And I don't know what the disconnect is. It's not for me to figure out. It's for the people running his career to figure out. But he's clearly not a star. So you need to recognize that, number one. I'm trying not like I'm trying. The Bud super fans, man, they've become a special bunch. They become a special bunch. Cause like we've been saying great things about Bud for over a decade here. We've been saying for nearly a decade that this guy's arguably the best fighter in the world, pound for pound. So this is nothing new to us where they have arrived, except they've taken it further. They've taken it to a point where Bud walks on water. Bud's a superstar. Bud can sit back and it's once again the expectations of Canelo and Bud in particular are different. For Canelo, as the A side, he has to go make the Benavidez fight. That's something I mostly agree with. Benavidez's team, they have to act like they want the fight and make it more clear and transparent, right? But as the A side, this is how it's been. The precedent has been set. As the A side, you got to go out and make the fight. And if you don't, generally history will blame it on you. That's just what we have to deal with, right? But when it comes to Bud, I hear other things. I'm like, why is that? Why is this different? Why is this different? Why I'm being told by people, and once again, this is good people. This is good people. That if Boots is clear, if Boots is clear about his intentions of wanting a Bud fight and moving to 154, like it's on Boots to go make that fight. It's on Boots to hunt down that fight. It's not on Bud. Bud has done enough. It's not on Bud to make that fight. Like if Boots makes it clear that, yeah, I want that fight, it's not on Bud to go make that fight. Bud's not going to be blamed for not making that fight. It's clear to me, it's becoming very clear that Bud versus Boots right now is the fight to make at 154. It's become clear. There are other fights there, but where's Mel? Mel's gone. Tim Tszyu is fighting September 22nd. He had a big gash in his head coming off of a loss. So right now, Tim Tszyu falls down the ladder. But Boots, he's a legitimate threat at 154 if he wants that fight. He is. He is. So if Boots wants that fight, that's the top fight to make there. And it's on Bud to answer the call and fight that fight as the A side. If we're being consistent about this, that's what it is. Right? So the other thing that the Bud super fans need to be honest about is one thing that I appreciate about Bud's career is he's quietly just put together a hell of a career as far as accomplishments. What is it now? 18-0 in title fights, something like that. welterweight division, particularly. I think he fought 9 times at welterweight. I could be wrong about this. I don't have the stats in front of me, but all knockouts, 100% KO percentage. I value the fact that this guy just he doesn't allow it to he doesn't leave it to the judges. He's been dominant in every fight. Um, he gets the job done. I value how he fights. Him and Boots, in a way, they mirror each other in that way. Is they're willing to take shrapnel. They're willing to take punches in order to get you out of there quicker. They are. And you can look, man, people forget this. People have a short memory, but a lot of the claims that we are levying against Boots from Saturday night, because dudes are out there acting like Boots' defense was worse than Secret Service agents on Saturday. And it's just like, I think that's an exaggeration. What I saw is a fighter who sacrificed some defense for offense. And his offense almost becomes his defense. And you got to give Avanesian credit because a lot of the shots he's landing against Boots, he landed against Bud too. So the thing is, man, like Bud and Boots, what I value about them is they're willing to entertain the fans. I just think it's in them, though. I don't even think they think about that. I think just naturally they like to fight. They like to compete. They're alphas. They want to get in there and knock your head off, and they're willing to take some shots to do that. And their defense, as a result, as an extension, is better than their opposition over time. Why? Because they're fighting less rounds. How many times, D-Style and I talked about this, how many times was Boots hit between round 6 and 12? Zero. Why? Because his opponent is disengaged. He's gone. He's out of his senses. He's gone. He's done. 0 times. Same thing with Bud. How many times was Shakur hit between rounds 6 through 12? Some people may say not a lot, but it's more than Boots was hit. Overall, he got more times than Boots was hit. Go look at CompuBox. It'll tell you that. It'll tell you that. So I appreciate Bud's achievements. Bud, 3 division champion, soon to be 4, likely. 2 division undisputed. So he's fought the fights that were available to him. From what I hear, he played some hardball with some other fights that he could have gotten bigger names in the ring with them. Maybe played some hardball. But that's the thing that the Bud super fans need to realize. The new Bud super fans. Not those of us who have been around for a decade and admired this guy's career and are level-headed about it and think this guy is an all-time great, because I'm there. But these other dudes that are just showing up, maybe they adopted Bud, using him as a pawn against other fighters they don't like, or I don't know what it is. But these dudes are not level-headed. But one thing they need to realize is that one thing missing from Bud's career is the big names, and a lot of that's not due to him. It's a credit to him in actuality. It's a credit to him because a lot of those bigger names were not willing to step in the ring with him. Your side of the street, my side of the street. And you hear that stuff when the fighter's a threat, right? But it still is what it is. His resume does. One thing it lacks is the big names. The big names. And I think this is where the Canelo thing came from. If he moves up to 168 and fights and beats Canelo, then good Lord, right? Good Lord. So there's that. But if that fight does not develop, if it doesn't develop, and Boots comes to the table, what the Bud fans need to realize is this isn't just an instance in which Boots brings nothing to the table and Bud brings everything to the table and it's on Boots to make that fight. No. What you need to realize is Boots does bring value to the table in which he is a name that will be recognized as maybe Bud's second best win, top 3 win, and a name. A name. Not Ndongo, not Ricky Burns, not Mean Machine. You know, this is a name. This is a name. And it's not just about achievements. The achievements are great, and to me, it's a great resume. And to me, he's an all-time great, man. Like I don't back off that. But you need to be realistic that as far as the resume goes, it does lack the big names, the marquee names, and that does matter to people. It does matter to people. So if those fights present themselves, then the guy that offers the name does have some value. And I'm just detailing the difference in how people speak when, say, Canelo and Bud, the differences, right? Is Canelo has to go out and make the Benavidez fight to these people. Why? Because Benavidez brings value to the table, right? And if Canelo needs to is going to stick around, he needs to fight the fights. And I agree with that. I agree with that. But why is it different over here? If we talk about Canelo versus Benavidez, Benavidez just fought on an undercard. Benavidez, the fight before that, did 40,000 pay-per-view buys, 50,000 at best, if you even believe those numbers. Benavidez, the fight before that, did 49,000 pay-per-view. The dude cannot sell. The dude cannot sell. He just fought on an undercard, fellas. He's not a star. And to me, he looks pretty mid. I don't know. He looks pretty mid to me. These dudes are trying to build him up as this monster, and I watch him fight. I'm like, this is it. Like, really, this is it. So to me, fight the fight, right? But at best, this is like a 95-5 split, if we're being honest about the market value of a David Benavidez. Like a 95-5 split. Is it the same for Bud versus Boots? Fellas, I'm hearing from LA that they're starting to comp these Bud tickets like crazy. The prices are going to come down. They can't sell them. They've got Mexicans on the undercard. Eminem's there. Like, this is 2004, and he just came off an 8 Mile. Like, what the hell is? Why you trying to get? Like, what kind of circus act is this? You got an Eminem there. They just can't sell it. So I look at this, and then I watch Boots 14,000 plus, and that's similar to what Bud does in Omaha, right? It's a similar thing. And I say that Boots brings more to the table for Bud. Like, he's got more of a market share there than a Benavidez to Canelo. So you need names on your resume. So if the Canelo fight doesn't present itself, then that's the fight. That's the fight. And as the A side, if Boots says he's willing to go to 154 and fight the fight, you need to go make the fight. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. That ruffles feathers. I don't know, but that to me is it's common sense. It's common sense. I don't know. It's not going to help with the numbers. Some of the stuff I've been saying about Canelo, not going to help with the numbers. I understand that, man. But at the end of the day, I'm just a boxing fan who sees what I see, and a lot of people looking weird and funny out here. I don't know. Make the fights. Make the fights. But if they make Canelo versus Bud, fine, December. I'm going to tell you this, though. I'm going to tell you this. They make that fight, the market's going to go crazy, and I don't know what it does pay-per-view wise. I don't know, but it's going to be acceptable to people, and that's fine. It's fine. I'll watch it. It's good. It's a good fight. But here's what I'll say about the Canelo thing is, if you put that fight on pay-per-view, Canelo versus Berlanga, Canelo versus Eubank Jr., if you put that fight in Vegas and put it on pay-per-view, I'm out. I'm out. I'm not buying that. I'm not. You better make that better be part of the subscription, or I'm not watching that. I'm not buying that. I'm not doing it. And to each his own. If you want to do it, do it. But the amount of pay-per-views, fellas, like, what is this? What in the hell is this? To me, Bud versus Madrimov is not pay-per-view worthy either. It's not. You can put Ruiz in there with his butt tattoos. You can put Isak Cruz, all 4'11" of him, with his little T-Rex arms. The dude's out there shadow boxing and throwing jabs like he's going to actually throw a jab in an actual fight. His little short arms. He's walking around like a real life pit bull. You can put these guys on the undercards all you want, fellas. It's not. Bud versus Madrimov is not a pay-per-view worthy fight. Where are we at right now? What is this? It's not a pay-per-view worthy fight. It's not a pay-per-view worthy card. It's just not. Let's be honest about this. If Virgil and Tim were still on the card, then we're talking. It's not a pay-per-view worthy card. And Canelo versus Berlanga or Eubank Jr. is not a pay-per-view worthy card, and you don't do that with tune-ups. That's a tune-up. You don't put tune-ups on pay-per-views. You don't do it. Why is this on pay-per-view? It's a tune-up. And why are we putting it in Vegas? Look, eat some of that tax money. Like, I understand you want to fight in Vegas for taxes. Look, I'm with you. I don't like the taxes either, but the fights need to go where they belong. It's a New York fight or it's a UK fight. You're putting it in Vegas and putting it on a pay-per-view. That can't fly. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. That's a tune-up. And it needs to be treated as a tune-up. And you run the risk of going to that place where you start to rub the market the wrong way and lose your attachment to your base if you make moves like that. I'm just telling you, like, I'm just warning people. Like, this is a boxing fan just here. Just a dude with a channel. You run the risk of losing us if you start to make those moves. I just don't like a lot of the moves that these dudes are making out here. Like, why are there so many pay-per-views? Why are there so many pay-per-views? The economy is terrible. People are living paycheck to paycheck, and you continue to offload these bad moves, offload overpaying fighters, offload terrible investments onto the consumer. I'm out. Like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. That's just me. Y'all, people can do what they want, and people that disagree with me, it's fine. But I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. You fight a tune-up, you got to treat it like a tune-up, and you can't put the added paywall in front of it. You can't. Bud versus Bud just like he's not. And Nando, I don't believe that Bud versus Errol did 650. I think, and I don't believe it did a $20 million live gate. Once again, that's just me. I question everything now. I think these dudes are lying about all the numbers. And it's just a reality of the situation. Bud's just not a star. I wish it wasn't so. He's been one of my favorite fighters for 12 years. I'm not new here. He's just not a star. I wish it wasn't so. And this is pretty much where I'm at with it too. Like, Zoo versus Virgil made that card. It became a different card completely when Virgil versus Tim Zoo fell off the card. It just became a different card altogether. And it's not worth the to me, it's just not worth. Everybody's gonna have their own thing. And this is the thing. It's the thing. It's not gonna sell. All these people out there acting like Canelo's fans are just mind-numb robots who are going to go along with anything. Maybe you have a percentage of that. I don't know what the percentage is. All I know is there's a good percentage that is not. And I'm in that percentage. That's going to say, if you try to charge me for Eubank Jr. or Berlanga, I'm not doing it. You're already starting to see a pushback, fellas. I already told you this. You're already starting to see a pushback from the market. Because Canelo versus Mel did not do 650 either. It didn't. There's no way, because Canelo versus Munguia allegedly did 520. There's no way Mel brought more to the table economically than Munguia did. There's no way. Anybody who's been following boxing will tell you that's absurd. That's absurd. There's no way Canelo versus Mel did more pay-per-view buys than Canelo versus Munguia. It doesn't add up. So I think, for a couple fights now, could be 3, could be 4. Likely after the Golovkin fight, third Golovkin fight, we've been seeing the market sort of push back a little bit, and more so each fight. You're starting to see a certain percentage say, no, we're not going to pay for this fight. We're not going to pay for that fight. And Canelo versus Eubank Jr. or Canelo versus Berlanga, you're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see the lowest pay-per-view numbers that Canelo maybe has ever done. If that fight comes off and it's on pay-per-view. And I have no problem with the tune-up, fellas. Like, I have no problem. It's been done like crazy in the past. I have no problem with the tune-up before a big fight. None. It just has to be done properly. We've talked about how Oscar fought Stevie Forbes in between Mayweather and Pacquiao. And he put it in Carson, California. He packed the place, $5 tickets, $10 tickets, and put it on regular HBO. And he said, I'm giving this one to the fans. It is what it is. We all see it. This dude's, I'm bringing him up in weight. I'm bringing him up from weight. He's clearly getting ready for a smaller guy in Pacquiao. I'm going to bring him up in weight from his natural weight. And Oscar looked clearly past it in that fight, by the way. Got touched up a little bit by Forbes before he stopped him. But it was what it was. Everybody knew it was a tune-up. Oscar didn't pretend that it wasn't a tune-up. And he gave back. He said, I'm giving back to the fans for this one. This one's for y'all. This one's for y'all. We're not going to pretend that this dude's not a 30-1 underdog. We're not going to pretend. And that's where we got to be with this. We got to be honest about this. Berlanga's a tune-up. Eubank Jr. is a tune-up. They're tune-up fights. So we got to be honest about what that is, and we have to treat it accordingly. We shouldn't have a problem with that. You want to fight the tune-up? You think you're going to fight Bud next? Eubank Jr. Makes sense why you would do that fight. You fight Benavidez next. It makes sense. Berlanga, do a tune-up first. Make sure you're ready and sharp going into that fight. It's got to be done right, though. It's got to be done right. If Tank is asking $40 million for Loma, he can go to hell. I don't know if he is or not, but if Erickson Lubin is trying to price himself out of a Tim Tszyu fight, go to hell. That's where I'm at with these fighters. Go to hell. I don't need to see you if that's what we're doing. If these guys are playing hardball tactics that get them priced out of fights, go to hell. Go to hell. That's where I'm at with that. We don't have to go deep into that. Pause. Go to hell. As far as the Boots versus Shakur conversation, give me the fighters who maybe look flawed, but they're entertaining. Give me that. Give me Boots over Shakur all day. And if you value the sweet science of Shakur, go at it. Have fun. To each his own. It's just not for me. It's not for me. Great fighter. And the fights still need to be fought. And by the way, Oscar, if Oscar is out there, especially after all the stuff he's saying about Canelo and how vocal he's been about that, if he's out there and he's trying to, once again, if he's going to mess this up for William Zepeda, and this is when William Zepeda needs to take control of this and say, I don't care. Put me in there with anybody. The dude's got a belt. And they just ordered a fight. Let's go. Let's do it. Because I don't believe William Zepeda is afraid of anybody. Especially a dude who fights like he's pillow fighting. He fights like he's sword fighting. I don't think William Zepeda is afraid of any of that. Oscar is the one holding this up. 70-30 split. If Shakur, if he thinks he'd earn more than that, we'll call him out, right? If he's the one who messes it up. But if he's the one who looks like he wants to fight, and then Oscar's messing this, make the fight. The dude's an action fighter. You don't need to treat action fighters that way. Put him in there. If he loses, we move on. Who cares? Shakur's not going to damage William Zepeda. He may beat him. He's not going to damage him. What's he going to damage him with? Shakur doesn't damage people. He beats them. He doesn't damage them. Dudes don't leave Shakur fights saying, I'll never be the same again. No, he beats him. He outsmarts him. He outboxes him. He sword fights and pillow fights them to death. That's fine. He box plus minuses these guys to death. That's fine, but he's not going to damage William Zepeda. He may beat him. He won't damage him. So what are we doing here? Just go make the fight. For the love of God, man, like, why do we keep half stepping around this? And I hear people out there saying, well, no, make the fight. The fight needs to be fought. Turned it down last year. What are we still doing here? Make the fight. If he loses, he loses. William Zepeda could lose 5 times. I wouldn't care. He's an action fighter. And I understand, man. I get this. I get that, we don't want to see Shakur in the process at all because he's boring. I understand that. I don't need to see the dude fight either. That's where I'm at with it, right? But and look, if there are other opportunities out there for Williams Zepeda, then that's fine, right? But right now, if Tank and Loma are in discussions, and Baranchik apparently has another fight on the table that he may take, then what else do we have? What do we have for him? And I'll just throw it out there like this. It comes down to this with Williams Zepeda. A title fight has to be next. Baranchik, it's acceptable. If they make the Baranchik fight, go ahead. Go ahead. I don't need to hear about Shakur if they make the Baranchik fight. Go ahead. Cool. Do that fight. If Tank versus Loma falls apart and they want to do Tank or Loma, cool. Go for it. Go for it. Even better. All those fights, even better. Better fights. But if there's a scenario that plays out in which Williams Zepeda doesn't fight a title fight next, when now he's had 2 opportunities to fight for a title, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You have to fight for a title next. Have to. You got one on the table that you know of for sure. You have to fight for a title next. If Williams Zepeda fights a non-title fight next, oh man, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. Oscar can say what he wants, whatever he wants. You got to fight that fight. You got to fight it. And I don't want to hear all these business excuses for any of these fighters. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Zepeda. I'm a fan of Canelo. I'm a fan of Bud. You heard me today. Call out all the fan bases. Call out some of these fighters. It is what it is, man. It's free smoke. You have to fight the fights. The fights have to be fought. Some of you dudes, man, what's best for your favorite fighter is not what's best for your soul. It's not what's best for the good of the sport, especially. You just need to call out some of this behavior that you're seeing and let the cards fall where they may. It's business, though. Boxing is business. It's hit and don't get hit. It's line your pocketbooks. Shout out D-Style Boxing, $2 super chat. Appreciate that. He'll hurt Zepeda's ears with his high-pitched crying. Yes, he will. I'd rather see Baranchik versus Zepeda. It's probably a better fight. You're probably right. Shakur needs a little more time to be humbled and check his attitude. Zepeda can fight him next year, and I'm perfectly fine with that comment. I am. The title fight just has to be next, Nando, and I think you would agree with that. If Baranchik announces a fight soon, which he may, that isn't William Zepeda, that and Tank versus Loma is announced, that's when you have to do. If that's the scenario, you have to do Shakur versus Zepeda next. You have to. There's no way around it. And Oscar can say what he wants, but if they turn that fight down a second time, that's inexcusable. So I'm with you. Baranchik's fine with me. And that's a great fight. Make that fight. Make it. I hope that's the scenario. And I hope that they do that, and then you can do Zepeda versus Shakur for a unification. And then Tank versus Loma consolidates belts. And now we're on a pathway to undisputed and figuring out who the lightweight champion is. The lightweight champion. It's a beautiful thing. But the title fight has to be next. It has to be. Junto versus Astrolabio. Junto Nakatani is back. 28-1 favorite against Astrolabio. And for those who don't know Astrolabio, good Filipino fighter. Lost a majority decision to Jason Maloney. Um, also defeated Rigo. He's a good, tough Filipino fighter. Junto is a 28-1 favorite, I think mostly because of the odds makers value Junto big time. I've seen it with the odds for his fights. They think he's a great talent. And I think that's mostly what the 28-1 odds are. And it's the same thing with Junto is after this fight, unifications at 118. He said he's got a couple fights left at 118, unifications. I think Inoue needs to stay at 122, defend his titles, defend as many of them as he can possibly fight. There's no need to rush for both of these guys. Handle business at 118, 122, and I think at some point late next year, early 2026, I think Inoue versus Junto at 122 is a collision course. And I think that's better than and bigger than anything Inoue can do at 126 right now. Dudes are going to a place where they think that this old place, this is old news. And they haven't caught up, American boxing fans. They don't see 55,000 in Tokyo and realize what they're looking at. That's bigger than anything he can do in America. And I'm not saying don't come over here and try to get some of the market share in America. That's not what I'm saying. Dodger Stadium is there. He can fill it. But there's no need to get gimmicky and move up to 126 for the sake of moving up to 126 and saying you're this division champion and that division champion when if you do things correctly, handle business at 122, he handles business at 118. All Japanese title holders at 118, and Junto can do his thing there and continue to build his name in Japan at 118. Continue to build himself as an even bigger star in Japan, and then all of a sudden you got the two biggest sports superstars in Japan, up there with the baseball Japanese stars fighting each other in the Tokyo Dome. That's bigger than anything that can happen at 126 in America. That's bigger than anything that can happen for Junto at 118, 115 in America. That's the fight. That's the fight. And I expect Junto to roll. My betting app was down earlier, so I fully expect to do a parlay that involves Junto Nakatani stoppage and Kosei Tanaka beating Rodriguez, although I think that's a decision fight. He's a 10-1 favorite against Rodriguez, and Rodriguez is he could be tricky. He could be tricky, but he's an inactive fighter coming off of a draw. So I think that Tanaka will handle that fight. And here's the other one, Alexis Rocha versus Dominguez. I think that's a sneaky good fight. And I think that's an action fight too. And that's a fight that I'll be looking at when I'm able to pull up my betting odds to see that fight not going the distance. Rocha's coming off, he had an L to Santia by KO, so he can be stopped. And Dominguez is largely unknown Mexican, undefeated Mexican fighter who's also a puncher. That can be tricky. I'm just saying that can be tricky. Look out for Dominguez in this fight against Rocha to be a sneaky underdog there. I think it's like 4-1, 4.5-1. Rocha could be on upset alert here. And that could be the fight of the weekend right there. That could be the fight of the weekend. And I'll be looking closely at the odds for that not going the distance. I want Shakur to save his health. I only want his opponents to get hit, not him, because I care about fighters' health. I'm morally superior. Me too. It's about hit and don't get hit. D-Style Boxing, appreciate the $5 super chat. And some news here. Inoue is setting up Nakatani for 2025 and Bam for 2026. I love it. Those are the fights to make. Per Glenn Jennings, no opponent official yet for Tim, a certain fighter being difficult despite the massive opportunity. And I think we know who that is. People are getting ahead of themselves out there, assuming that Erickson Lubin is the opponent for September 22nd. Erickson Lubin apparently playing some hardball and may be pricing himself out. Just saying. So Don't get ahead of yourself. Lubin has been known, allegedly, to play some hardball and price himself out of a certain big fight in the past and currently. And we'll keep our eyes closely on Tank versus Loma and how those negotiations go. I know Loma is supposed to be back in America on Monday, according to Bob Arum. So there'll be discussions, but keep an eye on Tank and how much he's demanding for a fight like that. Because one thing we know is Tank doesn't fight the fights. So a guy with that track record, you have to watch out for hardball being played when a big fight is being discussed for him. I will see y'all tomorrow, man. Appreciate y'all rolling through today. God bless. Peace.